Hello everyone, welcome back to another episode of the American Dream Podcast. I'm your host, Jim Tunison, President and CEO of the AikenChamber of Commerce. Joining me today is Karen Daly, VP Associate Broker of Meybohm Commercial Real Estate. Karen, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. It's good to see you.
Yeah, so I know the title kind of says it, but tell the folks a little bit about what you do, how long you've been doing it, and who you serve.
Yeah, so I know VP sounds like really impressive. It is a title that many brokers and agents with the company have, but it's something that you earn after a few years with the company. But I am an associate broker, so that's a designation I take very seriously. That is some additional training, but my main responsibility is commercial. I don't do residential. That is my focus, and it's basically buying, selling, leasing, and a lot of consultation.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Yes.
I could imagine.
Yeah. So, and the company is a separate division. A lot of people, look at Meybohm as a whole, but we are actually a very separate division.
Yeah. Okay. We can get into that a little bit. We would love to dive into your personal history and background. So, originally from Toronto, and you got here to Aiken in 1997.
Correct.
Right? So talk about that a little bit, growing up in Canada, and then how the heck did you wind up in Aiken, South Carolina?
Yeah, great question. And a story that a lot of people share that are in Aiken, which I like a lot. And thank you for saying Toronto correctly. I appreciate that.
Well, I mean, almost, being from Western New York, you kind of get that. You're not too far from the border, so.
Yes. I think we share a lot of sports teams and whatnot.
Yep.
So the horses, the short answer is the horses brought me to Aiken. I'm a recovering equestrian, and that was the original journey. So it was actually Toronto, California, South Carolina. And that was with the horses. I was technically a equestrian professional.
Oh wow!
Specifically in the fox hunting industry.
No kidding.
Yes, my passion for horses sort of overshadowed what I went to school for, which was graphic design.
Okay.
I was at York University in Toronto for that, and there weren't any jobs when I graduated, and so I worked in the horse industry. So that was really the catalyst to get me to South Carolina.
Okay.
I was in a relationship where we were both in the industry, and their job brought us to South Carolina.
Well,
yeah.
cool. As like a lot of folks do, right? Thankful for horses. It makes our job a little easier down here.
Yeah.
So yeah, graphic design. The job market was a little bit different than it is today.
And you could say the year it was 91. It's okay.
Well, thankfully, I guess it all worked out. You wound up in Aiken, and how did all of that translate and lead you into commercial real estate?
Right. Yeah, it's a little bit of a pivot. So I call it my happy accident. So the graphic design in the horse world, I was able to combine that for a while, and so I worked in the marketing world in Augusta for several years for an advertising agency, because the horses were not stable.
Unintended.
Yes. So I reverted back to working in the industry just to support it so I could do both. And it was great. I did that for about a decade. But ironically, I started doing a lot of work once I left the agency that I was with. I freelanced for about 10 years, and most of my clients were real estate agents. So for example, like Susie Haslip and Sharon Parsons, and I was doing their logos and all of their ads. So that was my introduction to the industry. So I sort of approached it that way. My life changed in 2016. I decided to blow it up and reinvent myself, and really needed to okay, what am I doing? Am I going back to graphic design? And ended up in real estate because I called my real estate agent who I bought my farm with, and I was like, everyone, who's hiring? I didn't want to restart the graphic design, and they said, well, I'm hiring, so come and work for me. And so I ended up doing their marketing. Yeah. Did that for about a year, and I had a conversation in the copy room with one of the agents, and they said, you need to find your niche. If you're going to do real estate, it's really important to find your niche. Well, I thought, there's so many great agents that are already doing equestrian properties. That's kind of flooded. What am I going to do? So it was actually an AikenChamber breakfast.
Hey.
where my life changed. So Meybohm Commercial, and at the time we were part of the parent company, we were hosting a speaker that was doing some development downtown. And so I was at the breakfast because I was going out on my own. I was going to do residential on my own as opposed to being an assistant. And I looked over at the table, and it was the whole Meybohm Commercial department, but it was all men. And I thought, is there, no female agent? So one of the agents from the Aiken office, Dean Newman, was there, and I went over to him, and we had conversations in the office before because he worked in the Aiken office. And I said, just curious, like, are there no female agents in commercial, and why not? And he said, oh no, there are. There was 2 agents, but in Augusta. And I that intrigued me. So he was like, are you interested? I said, I don't know. So apparently someone up the ladder found out that I was asking, and they approached me and had watched sort of some of the production that I had done, and I was asking some questions, and they came to me and said, we're interested in having you join.
That's so cool. You never know what's going to happen when you come to a chamber event.
Yeah.
But
you guys were the catalyst.
So cool. Well, props for you, though, for, putting that foot forward and, just asking questions and
Thank you.
Breaking down the door. That's pretty cool.
Well, a little bit of like the Elwoods in me. I was like, why is it hard?
Right.
It was a little bit like, what's the catch? Do I have to go back to school? And, I was a single mom at the time, so I was a little bit trepid about new territory, but I was really finding, I couldn't do the open houses on the weekends. I really needed to control my schedule. And it just, if it was a better fit. And I care about my own curtains and paint, but I don't really care about just...
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask you too, why commercial and not residential, so that explains it.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. I do like the it's a challenge in the way, like the forensics of commercial are pretty interesting to me. There's a lot of research, there's a lot of things that you do, like zoning and just getting into the bowels of the deal and making sure that the money has to make sense for your investor or your buyer or even your tenant and your landlord. So just being proactive and making sure that it's workable. But I'm a Bachelor of Fine Arts person, so my brain works a little bit more organically. So that is one thing that has been a big learning curve for me.
Probably gives you an advantage in some way too, working in this industry though. Like, you think about things differently, so maybe you're able to find those deals and help your clients out a little bit differently than some other folks.
I hope so. that's my goal.
Yeah.
And there have been some interesting conversations where we do have to think about outside the box. I'll meet with a client, and I've got some, great examples of local businesses where they come to me and they say, oh, I need this. And I'm like, do you? Let's look at it a different way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you probably get, working with small business owners, large corporations. I mean, you probably, see the full spectrum of clientele. What do you enjoy most about your job?
I think the connectivity has been really quite beneficial for me in many senses, sort of personally and professionally. Just meeting people either locally or nationally or even regionally and putting the pieces together that benefits them and the community. Not everybody sees it, of course. Everybody wants to profit from it, but I do a lot of deals where it's like, okay, it's grocery money. I'm just so happy to find this person a single office because they're starting a business. But then, you get the bigger players come in, and that's kind of exciting, and you're connecting to agents who are completely outside of your market, and that's also I've learned something from every deal.
Yeah, I'm sure. No deal is made the same, right? All deals are different.
Yes. Some painfully.
Oh yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
And talk about the Aiken market a little bit, because commercial real estate is a good telltale sign of where a community is headed. What are you seeing, in Aiken or across the CSRA that might encourage everyone about the direction our community's headed?
I would say the growth, and this is a touchy subject, I know, for the public, as far as what parts of town need to see it and what people deem necessary and what people don't deem necessary. For me, I do tend to have a niche where I really do concentrate on Aiken. So I can look at the CSRA for like other deals that maybe other agents in the office are doing, but I can only sort of speak to my own. Last year was very strong for leasing for me.
Okay.
And I thought that was interesting because it really touched on the need for like small and national businesses to be in our market. And some of them you can tell are kind of feeling it out. You know, when you see things like Chase shows up and builds a building, you know that's a real marker for the wealth and the growth that's in the area. I know people are distracted by the mattress stores and all of the things that shall remain unnamed, but those are signs too of how people are spending. They're able to be supported. I think it's encouraging that we're seeing like the trampoline park that's coming. You know, everybody's
excited for that.
Yes. I know everybody wants me to say like Trader Joe's is coming, but I think one of the things that people don't understand is our numbers just don't meet that criteria. And it's a little catch-22 because we need the rooftops to do that. So what I'm excited about seeing, and a lot of my clients are working on right now, it's the multifamily product. And Monday night I was at the city council meeting, and two of the things that were actually on the docket were clients of mine, and they're for workforce. So yeah, that's really encouraging.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, yeah, as a chamber president, you love to hear that.
Yeah.
So, you know, talking about growth a little bit, are there any gaps in the market, or are there any things that like we as community leaders should be looking at to maybe, you know, make your life easier, make it even more business friendly for folks wanting to move here and do business?
Yes, there's a big deficit of flex space. That is something I have been for years now trying to encourage investors and, you know, small and large. Like, I actually got a call yesterday. It's sort of ironic. I was on the seller side of a deal for some land close to New Ellington, and the initial intent was to do like a duplex. And they've changed their mind. They're going to do a flex style building because with the contracts coming to SRS, a lot of the subs for the housing, you know, they need those buildings. So that's a big one. I would say upgraded office space. We have a lot of really dated, it's like 1985 still threw up in the building. It's just not attractive. And that's a struggle because people tend to walk into a space and they just don't see it. They get overwhelmed by all of the work that has to go into it. So that's a challenge. And I would say warehouse is another one.
Okay.
Anything like 10,000, 20,000, 50,000, we don't have that. We have hundreds of thousands at Sage Mill, or we have, I think we had a spec building where Children's Place was that was about 10,000 square feet. It just sat and sat and sat, but it was before its time.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Different timing. But yeah, so more for those smaller to medium-sized companies.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
For folks who are considering leasing space, buying property, might be their first time making that jump, what are some of the mistakes that you see people make? And maybe you can caution people or things to look out for business owners.
I would say in my experience, I tend to be a little OCD. So I want to cover all of my bases for my clients. And I would say that the overall theme for that would be that they don't really understand the negotiation time frame and due diligence for truly understanding what they're getting into, whether it's a lease or it's a purchase. I tend to want a pre-due diligence period for both of them to say, like, let's make sure the numbers work. Like, if you're selling gadgets, you know, that cost $10, but you are looking at a lease that's $2,500 a month, you know, is this a practical business plan? Right. Let's back into that a little bit. You know, we'll get in touch with the USC Aiken business department, or we'll do SCORE and say, like, you need to dig into this a little bit more because you're going to be heartbroken. And I don't want you heartbroken after you sign. And it's the same for a buying period. I will say, some of my landlords might not appreciate this, but if we're looking at a lease that is quite sporty, and I'm like, let's go talk to fill in the blank lender and see if that would carry over better into an asset for you to own. So I think a lot of times people come in, they feel like they're prepared. They are for the most part, but there's a few things that's like, let's consider all of our options. And I think a lot of education on net leases would really help. And I do try to educate them and say, like, just keep in mind your numbers and the annual bumps usually tell people too late.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And that's why I think ADDA had a class on or workshop on leases a couple months ago, and that's why we started Launchpad Aiken, to just give people a space, and one, to find out if you want to be tied down to one spot 9 to 5 even if someone's not walking through that door, right? And just kind of get the whole picture and just kind of take away that risk for people, because we want to stop that revolving door of someone signing that lease, and then like you said, it's too late by the time they notice that, oh crap, what do I got myself into?
Well, and I think because of my marketing background, I'm very maybe overly sensitive to the fact that I'm like, oh, I love the idea, I love that you've got the numbers, but like it has to be sustainable. And who are you consulting as far as your advertising? You've got to have advertising dollars aside from your rent or purchasing the building to make sure that you have longevity. It breaks my heart when people are like, I don't know why it's working and my rent went up, and it's like, or why it's not working, and my rent is going up and my product is good. It's like, yeah, but there needs to be almost an autopsy.
That's a great way to put it. Yeah, look at everything before making that decision. So, someone who moved here and you've really become a part of this community's fabric. You dove right in, right? You're on the Aiken Corporation board. You mentioned the chamber before, but how have you been able, and how would you recommend that someone, earn that trust and, start to tiptoe into this community?
Well, first of all, thank you for saying that. That's nice to hear, because I don't sort of think about that being. It's very nice. I appreciate the compliment. I just try to work hard and constantly improve myself. But you mentioned like Aiken Corp. I've also somehow managed to become the chair of the BZA recently, and served on Aiken Association of Realtors. And so the boards, I think, early on in my career, another piece of advice that I took was that I think they're really critical for development within your business. To have an understanding of like where you work from a very granular level has been instrumental for me. I've learned so much. Sometimes trial by fire, but I think that's the best way, because if you're not, what's the expression, if you're not failing, you're not learning, right, and whatnot. So I think that the essential component is really listening to what your clients need and not taking it personally, and really putting yourself in their shoes. I think being an empathetic service provider is helpful, but you also have to kind of draw a line. And that's something later in my career I've learned to say, you can't help everybody. And I think
that's a great point, because especially in our business, when you have over 900 members and it's like you have this wide variety of folks that you're dealing with, I'm a people pleaser, and that can be a detriment certainly at times. Like you said, you got to learn to draw that line and know that, hey, you are the expert, right? And you know what you're talking about, and this is good advice I'm giving you.
And to that point, I will always say, I don't know, but I will find out. I will never profess to be because I still think I'm a student of the industry. And there are people who've had far more experience that have forgotten more than I know. And I always turn to them and say, what was your experience? And sometimes, oddly, there's been several occasions where they're like, I've never confronted that before. And I'm thinking, oh, great. I love being the pioneer of this problem. But I would say just being part of the fabric of the community, I think, has really been a large part of participating and I guess it's giving back, because it is, they're all volunteer.
Yep.
So I don't get paid the big bucks for those ones.
And there's plenty of nonprofits and boards to choose from in
Yes.
Aiken, so plenty of ways to get plugged in.
Yes.
And speaking of Aiken, I know you're from Canada,
Yes.
but why is Aiken the best place to pursue the American dream?
Well, clearly it's working because I've been here for a while. I think that Aiken is, even though it's a tertiary market, even though we're not, fill in the blank to whatever you want to compare it to, there's still so much opportunity here that if you have the gumption and the drive and the passion, I think you can do a lot. Some products are a better fit than others. I think that finding your niche, finding your lane, in some ways I don't think it really matters where you are, but what's so unique about Aiken is the fact that it's a small pond, but it's a small pond that touches many things. And the proximity to other things that you can pull into Aiken. I think the mosaic of Aiken is really essential to its vibrancy, because there's a lot of reticence for I can't tell you for how many years people say, you're not from around here. No, no, I'm not. But there's many people that are not from here originally. And I think that everybody has a connection in some way, whether it's the horses or SRS, or they were born here, or they left and come back. I think there's literally almost like a magnetic pull in Aiken, because it has such a feeling of I could do that there, almost like a test market.
Yeah.
And I think there's a bit of a soft place to land if it doesn't work, and there's so many resources like the chamber to lean on. Yeah.
Well, I'm glad we were recording that answer because I couldn't have said it better myself. But yeah, it's just, and I describe it as, I feel like you said, Aiken's it's a soft place to land. It's a great place to get your footing and build your career. But I also feel like people cheer for the collective success of everyone else. It's like they want you to do well, and I think that just brings, it's the rising tide lifts all boats mentality here. And I just really get a sense of that here. And obviously we're with the chamber, we kind of have to be those cheerleaders too, right? But I just, again, not from being here, you just see it right off the bat, and it makes this place really special.
I agree. And I think that's the other thing. You can find your people, you can find your tribe. As far as I've had people in every aspect of, technically I've had 3 careers here. I had the horse industry, I had the graphic design industry, and then the commercial real estate industry. And in each one, you're always going to find a person who is your biggest cheerleader. And it could be somebody within the chamber. Obviously you provide sources for that. For me, at Meybohm, I had, Julie Whitesell was my biggest fan. And when I was looking to make the transition to commercial, she was like, of course you can do it. And it just, I feel like there's an essence in Aiken of why not? Why not you?
Yeah. Why not you? Why not Aiken? So I'll give you the last word here. What else, if we haven't covered it already, do you want people to know about you and what they'll get when they work with you?
Well, I would be doing the company a disservice if I didn't say that we have just rebranded, and though we are still part of Meybohm Commercial is a bit more of a standalone. We have a bit of a new look. And so to that end, some of the services that we'll be able to provide are going to be a little more streamlined, a little more AI based.
Okay.
Yeah, in a good way.
Yeah.
Just to make that clear.
Efficient, more efficient.
More efficient. And so, just continuing to bring a personalized communication and problem solving approach, to commercial real estate, but also just a connectivity. Even if I'm having a conversation with somebody that isn't necessarily commercial real estate related, I just like connecting people and coming up with a solution. Yeah. Same boat. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, Karen, thank you for being here today. It was a great conversation.
Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.